All right, Ezra 9, let's call this one Don't Be the Reason for Shame. And not an idle shame, but a shame that can actually compromise relationships as we see Ezra get back to the land, effectively deliver the goods, and get a report from his officials that the people have already begun to remarry or intermarry into those 7 nations God originally told them would never be a healthy fit with Israel. And so it wasn't all foreign wives or foreign partners they weren't allowed to take, because Moses himself had a Midianite wife and a wife from Cush. But there were 7 nations that refused to do the kinds of things that would actually be productive in the land. And for that reason, God gave them the eviction notice and Israel a commission to basically improve and develop the land to a place it would never be under the Canaanites. And so as Ezra gets word that they have already begun to go back into these failed relationships, he mourns, prays, and again, he is going to fast. And last time he fasted for safe travel. This time he's going to fast for basically by the end of the chapter, realizing that they stand before God with no legitimate defense. And so in getting there, his prayer is going to give us some important detail. He's going to be honest. God, we are a people who have a history with you, and that history is not good. We did some things that got us carted off into captivity. And in spite of all that, you have given us favor before kings. You've given them some respectable men and women that they could look at, like we said, the Mordecais, the Esthers, the Daniels, etc., and say these are people who are worthy of our trust. But now we're seeing that it hasn't taken us very long to get comfortable in the land, having seen some success, to go back to the same things that got us locked up in the first place. Sometimes we can call that recidivism when it's in the context of jails, lockups, or prisons. But it's not just in prisons, because there are times in life when God might have simply given us another chance in things that have nothing to do with incarceration. But once we reach a certain point of stability, we might go right back to the same habits that caused us to fail in the first place. And that's exactly what Ezra is confronted with here. And it is not simply the cause of shame before God. You got to remember, they're doing all this in front of enemies. They never stopped being surrounded because they were gone for 70 years, and the people of the land got used to them being gone. And so as they're starting to get more comfortable with the people of the land, Ezra realizes that the danger is not simply in God withdrawing his favor, it's the way in which he can do it. Understanding that their desire to fit and get along with their neighbors is compromising the influence that Ezra has with kings. And so that is another lesson for us. There are times when the potential for us to have influence at higher places seems so remote that we just want to fit in with the folks around us. That's why it's so easy for me to look at the people of Israel and understand that temptation, because sometimes it can be tough to look beyond your surroundings to see potential. And so what they are confronted with is the reality of living in a circumstance where they might have lost touch with the fact that kings are actually supporting their cause. But Ezra, having recently come back from Persia, realizes that in order to keep the relationship they have with King Artaxerxes and the kings that might come after him, they are going to need to clean up their relationship with the people of the land. And that's what he's going to spend the next chapter doing, understanding how important the trust of the king is. The same Ezra who paused the entire expedition to make sure that the king's valuables were transported to Israel safely. And the next chapter is going to take the unnecessary delay of breaking all of the relationships that would have prevented Israel from becoming the nation King Artaxerxes had commissioned them to be. And understanding that the people who he's found in Israel have returned to marriages and relationships that actually strengthen their enemies and weaken their relationships with their allies, Ezra is going to pause again, this time to reinforce Israel's boundaries with untrustworthy neighbors so that he can protect Israel's relationship with trustworthy kings.